Well, hi everyone. I'm redoing this video because the last one had really bad audio, so hopefully this one will be acceptable. So the question that was put to me was, why analog? And it's a wonderful question, and there are a lot of answers that are really interesting. So why analog? Well, first of all, there's a visceral nature to it. It's something you can touch and hold, and there's a joy to that and a mystery to it and a magic to it. I have 6 wind-ups. These are 78 wind-ups, and they're lovely when the power goes out because I can put a record on and crank it up. I have one in the entrance to the Soundsmith, and when a customer comes in with a young child and they look at it, I say, would you like to hear it? And I crank it up and I play a 78 for them, and they're stunned and they go, where's the wires? No wires, no wires. It's all mechanical, it's all acoustic. So if you trace back the history of analog, obviously it started with acoustic recordings well over 100 years ago. And when the vacuum tube was invented, that was a big advance because it allowed all of these devices that could never have existed before: microphones, speakers, cutter heads, amplifiers. And the initial efforts at those solved a number of problems like sensitivity. When you were recording an analog recording, or an acoustic recording rather, you had to put the loud instruments in the back and the quiet ones up front near them. You know, the megaphone that picked up the sound and moved the cutting stylus. But when you had a microphone, now you had all kinds of options you didn't have before. But early electronics were a little bit nonlinear, so whereas they solved a number of problems, they created some of their own. It took about 30 years to make really beautiful electronics: microphones, speakers, amplifiers, ribbon mics, and they linearized everything, and the recordings were really quite good. And then we went from 78 to microgroove, and that had initially some problems, and a whole new line of cartridges and styli had to be made, but they improved over the many years. And then eventually the transistor was invented, and early transistor circuitry didn't sound like tubes. It didn't have the advantages that some tube circuitry had, but eventually that was fixed. And then integrated circuits came, and early op amps, integrated circuits, amplifiers were very nonlinear. They were handy, and they fixed some problems of getting a large amount of circuitry in a small area and making it basically less expensive to assemble and mass produce. But early op amps, integrated circuits, really didn't sound very good at all. Well, it took about 30 years, and eventually some super audio op amps were made that were wonderful. And then, of course, digital came in. Now, digital solved a number of problems, like every advance in audio, but it also created some of its own. And the thing about digital is that it's been around 30 or 40 years, and the problems have not been fixed. So you may say, well, why? Well, firstly, there's no need to. The purpose that it serves is fine. There is high resolution digital, although certain noted engineers and people, some of which I know, have stated you really can't get past 96K in terms of sampling, but because of jitter and clock errors, and they've seemingly proved that mathematically. But the bottom line is there's not been a tremendous need to make digital better than it is. There have been some efforts, super audio CD and so on, but basically digital is what it is. And now the question is, why analog? Well, some of the problems that digital created have not been resolved, like phase errors, group delay, to where certain frequencies are shifted in time with respect to others, not to mention the type of sampling that's done, both in terms of volume levels, which is the bit rate. 24-bit is the highest bit rate or volume, discrete volume levels for digital. Whereas analog, really good analog, can be a lot more resolving. And people who are audiophiles and are into analog are well aware that there are certain records with a really, really good analog system have always sounded better than digital. and nobody's really detailed to explain that very well. There was a wonderful paper done by Ortofon, and in one of my talks at 17 minutes and 30 seconds, I put up on the screen part of that paper. And the gentleman who wrote that, it's quite fascinating, and I love referring to it. He basically said that a medium-grade cartridge was capable of resolving a groove displacement of 50 hydrocarbon molecules side by side. And I said, well, if a medium quality cartridge and arm can do that, how about a high quality cartridge and arm? So I just brought it down to 20 small hydrocarbon molecules and just decided to pick benzene as a small hydrocarbon molecule. And when I looked up the radius of a benzene molecule, and I put 20 of them holding hands, and I said, all right, assuming this is the resolution, step resolution in terms of volume level that a good cartridge can detect, how does that compare to 24-bit? Mathematically, it turned out to be roughly 300 to 500 times better. Now, we're not talking about sampling rate. That's different, how many samples per second. We're talking about discrete volume levels. So that has to be integrated or smoothed by the circuitry or by the human ear. And it creates its own problems. Again, not a big amount of push or reasoning to solve that problem because it serves a purpose. Digital serves a wonderful purpose, and it is what it is. But it does explain why there are certain aspects of analog that are superior. And in terms of sampling, yes, there's high rate sampling, but a really, really good cartridge and arm and turntable can resolve things surprisingly well. So for those that have really heard a really good analog system, it's an experience you don't soon forget. And there is, again, this visceral aspect to it. You know, there's a joy in holding this miniature sculpture and putting it on a turntable, and this miracle happens. It's like a bumblebee that shouldn't be able to fly, or a hummingbird able to migrate thousands of miles. It's a mystery that it's as good as it is. And if Edison were around to witness what a modern analog system sounds like, he might be a little stunned to see that his invention had persisted over time and been perfected to a remarkable degree. One of the joys and surprises I had when I got my Norman lathes, cutting lathes, was cutting a lacquer and bringing it over back here to my system and playing it with the strain gauge for the first time. So a live performer here in my place, we were recording for Direct Grace Records, my charity record label. And when you take that dub, that 12-inch lacquer as a test recording, and you bring it over and you play it with the strain gauge, it is completely noiseless. It is lacking distortion to a degree that's surprising, and it just sounds live. And it's fascinating how good analog could be. So there's a joy to it, a mystery to it, and a lot of care. You know, it's not like taking a shot of vodka to get drunk. It's like decanting some fine wine, if you like wine, and sipping it and enjoying it. Analog is a wonderful thing. It's not going away. And yes, it varies with the quality of the recording and the quality of the pressings and the equipment that's used to play it back on. There's wide variability there. But when everything's done right, it is just a wonderful experience. So if any of you find yourself in the New York area, we're about 30 miles north of New York City, you're welcome to call and we'll make a short appointment. I'll play you my system. And if you've not heard anything like that before, that would be a joy to me. So thanks for watching. And as we say in analog, if you don't get all the words, you might not get the story. So we try for greater and greater resolution with our designs and rebuilding our stuff inexpensively for our customers. We love what we do, and we really appreciate your watching this. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye now.